Hi, I'm Jeff Owens, and welcome to today's roundtable discussion on SceneDaily.com. I'm here with Bob Pockrass and Kurt Busch. Wait, are you Kurt? You're not Kurt Busch.
Just because you're my boss, I'll let you get away with it.
Are you Kurt Busch? If you don't know what we're talking about, check out Jeff's blog on SceneDaily.com, and you'll find out what we're talking about. But today, we're here to talk about Dale Earnhardt Jr., and specifically, is it time for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his crew chief and his cousin, Tony Eury Jr., to perhaps split up? Bob?
Obviously, yes, Bob. I hope you're not going to go the other way because, I mean, clearly they have to break up. I mean, it's not working what we have right now. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the sport, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the most popular driver, yet he never wins. He hasn't won for a while. He has, 3 wins since 2005. It's not working, so you got to try something else. He even admitted himself at Bristol that, yeah, they could probably get better results with somebody else that he just didn't really want to, he'd rather stay together with them.
I think you need to pay attention to what's going on in the sport. In the last 3 weeks, if you took the points from the last 3 weeks, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would be 10th in points. If he kept doing what he did in the last
3 weeks, we're talking about the last 3 years.
Well, but here's the deal. I mean, you can't say that they're just totally off right now. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. has the confidence in Tony Eury Jr. If you change crew chiefs now, you're going to take 2 steps back to possibly make 3 steps forward in the future, but I don't think you're going to do it enough time to make the chase. I think you stay with Tony Eury Jr. until at least you can see if you're going to make the chase or not. If you're not going to make the chase, then maybe you try to make the change so that Dale Earnhardt Jr. can first get over the anger of losing Tony Eury Jr. as his crew chief and also learn to see if he can work with somebody else during a time when the results aren't going to be as important because you're already out of the chase. So I think you need to wait. I think you need to. I mean, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is not like other drivers. You can't just jumble everything up and expect him to respond right away.
I think there's plenty of evidence that these guys, for whatever reason, just can't get it done. I mean, they struggled for 2 or 3 years at DEI.
There's plenty of evidence. It was always DEI's fault when they struggled at DEI, and now you have the new race car, and they're still learning the new race car. It took Jeff Gordon up until the start of this year, him and Steve Letarte, to learn how to work with this new race car. Now, it's taken Dale Earnhardt Jr. a little bit longer, and because it's 5 more races longer, you're going to get rid of him and Tony Eury Jr.'s
These guys
combination.
were struggling before the new car came along. They struggled their last 2 years together at DEI. Then they go to the elite team in the sport. Everybody expects them to be great, and they've underachieved. Whether it's Dale Jr.'s fault or Tony Eury Jr.'s fault, I don't think that matters. I think they've struggled together, and I think it's time for Rick Hendrick to break them up and see if they might be better off on their own. And one thing that's really unfair right now is that Dale Jr. has been under tremendous pressure his entire career, basically because of who he is and his large fan base and his tremendous amount of sponsorship. Tony Eury is under tremendous pressure because of who Dale Jr. is, and that's not fair. He's getting all the criticism and all the blame right now, and I think it would be just as good for him to go work with someone else as it would for Dale Jr. I know they don't want to break up. I know they're family, and I know it seems somewhat unfair. But anytime you've got 2 guys, a driver and a crew chief in this sport, that are struggling and underachieving, it's the team owner's responsibility to go in and shake things up and make a change. And you can't not make that change just because they're cousins and they don't want to break up.
But see, you can't. The thing is, Tony Eury Jr. wants to stay with them in some capacity. So fine, let them stay together. But the problem is, the problem is we don't know necessarily whether Dale Jr.'s, whether it's his driving ability or whether it's Tony Jr.'s crew chief ability, whatever. But you can't say, well, we're going to make a driver change. You can't, at Hendrick Motorsports, you're not going to get rid of Dale Jr. That's just, so the reason I'm saying you got to break them up or try something else is because you got to change the crew chief. You're not going to change the driver. So that's the only change you can make that makes sense, I mean, and Hendrick is going to have to be the one to step up here and say, look, this isn't working. We need to move Tony Jr. to car chief or something like that, and let somebody else come in because they need a voice. They're too much. They are cousins and they clash and they're equals in some ways, and there's not like a level of respect there where one is over the other necessarily. And you need somebody to come in and really take charge, like a veteran type guy that's gonna kick both their butt and kind of get him into shape.
See, I don't think that Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs to be kicked in the butt every week. like maybe you suggesting. I think he just needs to be focused a little bit more. He needs to race better than he did at Daytona, not cause a big wreck. He needs to not qualify 31st or wherever he did at Bristol, and that isn't Tony Eury Jr.'s fault.
I think part of it is. I think a crew chief is a head coach, and part of his job is to keep that driver motivated, keep him focused, keep him under control, and make sure that those mistakes don't happen. And I think the relationship between those two, because they're too close, they're so close, and because they're family, it's difficult for Tony to do that. I think sometimes Junior just doesn't listen to it.
Well, if he doesn't listen to Tony Eury Jr., I don't know who else he's going to listen to. I don't think
Somebody
you can take
above
it.
him.
I don't think you can take a Chad Knaus or somebody and put him with a Dale Earnhardt Jr. and that he will respond.
No, like a veteran type guy. That's who you need. He needs somebody who he respects, who is like his dad's kind of age, that maybe even work with his dad in some capacity. He's very respectful of people that are older in the sport, and he would go into like a yes sir kind of mentality, and I think that would really benefit him.
I think the bottom line here is that something needs to be done. I don't think it's Dale Jr.'s fault. I don't think it's Tony Jr.'s fault. But the sponsorship and the team that these two guys have and their tremendous fan base deserves greater performance than what they're getting right now. And I think, frankly, the reason we're having this discussion is because just about everybody in the sport wants to see that team succeed because they all are so popular. So Rick Hendrick, of course, I think has got a big decision to make. Thanks for joining us today on SceneDaily.com. We'll see you next week.